McKinney. I am a writer and poet. I will also encourage all of you to, if you feel empowered or if that's what you want to identify as, to also consider yourselves writers and poets without any judgment of whether you've been published or if your work is where it wants to be, or all of the little nuanced things that we tend to kind of get wrapped up in that prevent us from stepping into our own gifts. I hope that you can leave some of those at the door as we go through this. It's going to be a series of prompts, really, and I want ultimately for us to dive deeper into how we acknowledge our voice and then how we express that creatively. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The whole theme of this series of prompts is authenticity. And that has been a really important word for me, especially in the last few years, as I have done some work to discover my own voice, to discover my own writing subject matter and how my process evolves, or if I even want a process on some days. So I want to start by reading a poem that I wrote at the beginning of this authenticity journey, if you will. But it was just kind of riddled with a self-acknowledgement of, I'm not being my authentic self. I'm not writing what feels authentic to me. I'm not telling stories in a way that I would want to take them in. I am choosing to be motivated by other things, like how people perceive me, or how, financially successful I can be using writing as a tool instead of an art form. And so all of these other motivations that had snuck their way into my work and was then creating this writer's block. And so I would sit down and want to write, but I couldn't because I have all of these other things filtering my voice. And so this is the poem that came from that. And so I'm going to read it. We are going to then dive into the guided prompts, and then I'll read one more at the end, and hopefully we'll see if anyone would like to share what they've come up with as a result. So this poem is called Office Politics. I see no changes. Melanated voices switch to fit a code so foreign it feels like stolen land, but I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. Curves too dangerous, mane too free, black too bold for you. Hiding behind your inclusive initiatives, your cultural diversity seminars, but I see no changes. Staring in the mirror, cloaked in business professional chic sheep's clothing, blended, camouflaged, and minimized to hell and back, trying to convince my reflection that I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. Authenticity is my native language, but assimilation is my practiced tongue. So maybe that's why I see no changes. Kikiing with the administrative roles, scared to be pigeonholed, so internally, secretly, embarrassingly, needing it to be known that I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. I was told you either eat like they do or lose your seat at the table. Prioritizing the oppressor's comfort over the oppressed's truth is probably why I see no changes. I'm no different. Yeah, I'm no different. So that is I see no changes. Piece that I really melanated voices decided to embrace my voice, to embrace my truth, because it gets exhausting trying to figure out if other people like you or if they're going to like your work or whatever it is you're trying to figure out. It's exhausting and it stunts your creativity. So the first thing that I would like us all to do is think about, and hopefully you have pen and paper, but if you don't, please grab pen and paper, is to think about what matters to you in a deep way. And when I talk about matters, I think about what really just is your passion. And it can be a bulleted list. We're going to dive deeper in. It doesn't have to be fully baked out here, but and mattering can be anything. It can be the thing that really angers you the most. You know, if I think about that, I think about violence, like gang violence. That really bothers me. That really angers me. I think about my family I really am passionate about my family and my loved ones. I think about Black education. I really am passionate about Black children having access to learn the things that will help them be successful in the world. So, what are some of the things that you're passionate about that if someone took a hard stance on it, you could also take a hard stance, that you could also advocate the oppressed, that you might be likely if you were the type of person who would engage in protests or lobbying or like what would you go to bat for? And so I'll give 2 or so minutes for us to just brainstorm that list. Okay, so hopefully we have a few things written down. If not, please feel free to keep writing. And if something pops into your mind as we move on to the next step, please feel free to go back and keep jotting, because this is a list that can definitely be built upon as you continue writing poems from a place of what matters to you. The second thing that I would like us all to do is to jot down some ways that your voice is unique. So perhaps you grew up in a cultural group or minority group where your perspective on America is different. Perhaps you have natural hair. I have locks. Sometimes that is a reason why I see things differently. Perhaps you are a member of the LGBTQIA community. Perhaps you can do your race, your gender, your family dynamics. If you came from a single parent household, or if you have traveled a lot, just anything that makes your voice unique, uniquely you, where your perspective could be different from others. And I also add, as you're writing, this does not have to be something that makes you special. I think oftentimes we get kind of bogged down. It absolutely does, don't get me wrong. But sometimes we get bogged down in not feeling like our voices are special. You know, I could write, oh, I've lived abroad, but a bunch of people have lived abroad, so I'm not sure if that's special. We're trying to avoid that second half of minimizing the uniqueness of your voice because someone else has also done it. Just because someone else did it too does not mean that it wasn't unique for you, because you filtered that experience in a way that only you could. So please still add it to the list. Please don't, discount your experiences or your perspectives just because some other person might have that same experience, because I guarantee you they might have had the physical experience, but the perception, the way that they filtered it, all of that information is different from your voice, from your perspective, from your opinion. You might have seen the same bird, but you might have smelled something or tasted something or recalled a memory that is completely different from that other person's experience. Okay. Now I would like for us all to select one of the things that we identified as mattering to us or being passionate about. And we're going to work with that one thing for now. You can pick the one that's at the top of the list or at the bottom. You can eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You can pick the one that is the most pressing or the most interesting, but just select one and pull the thread. Why does that matter to you? Oftentimes, if we're thinking about why something matters, it's because of the implications. So it's not just, I care about my family, but I care about losing them. I don't want to lose my family, or I care about my grandmother or my grandfather. And they surfaced in that moment because maybe one of them is ill or ailing, or, my grandfather had dementia. So it was about, I care about them because this. I care about children's education because I really do think that in 20 or so years, the kids that are growing up now, especially, some that maybe didn't have a great opportunity to learn during COVID, there are impacts to that. And I want to continue to see Black growth and not backtracking. And so threats to that is something that I feel passionate about. Perhaps violence, violence in Black neighborhoods is something that I care about because I have family in those neighborhoods and I don't want to lose them. So a theme in my work is about loss and growth and not wanting to lose people, things, etc. So what are some of the reasons why you care about what you wrote? What would happen if you lost that thing, or if that thing changed, or if you no longer had access to it? You can also think about if you went the opposite way and you picked something that you care about because you love it or you're inspired by it. What would happen if you had more of it, an abundance of it? So we're answering the question, why does this thing matter to me on a deeper level? Not just because it's important or because I love it, but why? What is its importance? How did that importance develop? We could even think back to one or two moments where either the first time we realized that that thing was important or that it mattered. We can think back to the first time or a time where that thing, it was reinforced that it mattered. Maybe you don't remember the first time that you realized it, but you remember I maybe almost lost that thing, or I was so overjoyed when I refound it again that it solidified the fact that it was important to me. And now let's hold on to one of those moments, either where you first realized that was important to you, or a solidifying or re-solidifying moment where you realize this thing is important. It can be maybe it happens every day. Maybe it's a daily thing. I would say, for example, education of children. When my mom and sister became teachers, I really get to see the work that goes into education. And now that I have cousins and nieces and nephews and I see them growing up, and I kind of compare what I would want for them versus the education that they're getting. If it's about family, maybe a health scare, or perhaps being at a graduation and being at a family reunion and feeling all the love. Just what is a reinforcing moment that, yeah, this is one of those things that really is important to me, that really matters to me, that I can for sure use as proof that I'm passionate about this topic. Okay. And now, if we can come back, and I want to just sit in that moment for just maybe 1 or 2 minutes. The moment that you wrote down where your passion was solidified, or the fact that this thing was important to you was reinforced. If we could just sit in that moment and try and remember as much as you can about it. Some might close their eyes, some might choose to keep writing, whatever you'd like to do works. But where was that moment? Where were you? Were you with anyone? Could you smell anything by chance? Or hear anything specific? Where was your mind that day? Were you in one state of mind and then this event changed it? Or did it reinforce something that was already in process? How did you feel? And try and dig deeper than happy or sad or angry. Were you overjoyed? Was it a new perspective that you had never experienced before? Was it the same old, and it just rolled off your back? Just really think about how you felt. What did you see? Did you see anything? And now that thing reminds you of that moment, or it's a common theme in your world. All right. And as we come out of that sitting in the moment, this is the place where I'm usually inspired to write about that topic or that story. And I have this list that I can recall back to all of the ways that I'm equipped to tell this story because of my voice and my perspective. So the next step is a little bit odd, but I always run through the nursery rhyme. There was an old lady who lived in a shoe. And I'm not an advocate for, hitting children. I'll say that before I read the nursery rhyme. So it goes, there was an old lady who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some water without any bread and whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed. So the reason why I go through that, though, is because it's a great example of all of the ways you can approach storytelling. So there was an old lady. You can start with the person who lived in a shoe. You can start with the place. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. You can start with the circumstance or the activities or events surrounding the story. She gave them some water without any bread, and then she did some other stuff. You can start with the end in mind. So if you know how you want it to end or you have a really good closing, you can start there and then work backwards. So I always try and anchor myself to where I am in this story. Am I going to start with setting? Am I going to set the scene? Am I going to say it was a cold afternoon? Or am I going to say, there once was, or am I going to latch onto my grandmother, for example? Her laugh filled the room. She was a joy to be around. Or am I going to begin with the end? If I know it's a poem or a story about triumph, and at the end, I walked away confidently from this toxic relationship or whatever the case, then how did I get there? And then I can say, okay, well, there was a, blow up argument. And then before that, there was me crying. I can work backwards. So I will typically do that. I also open rhymezone.com, which helps me if I'm trying to create a rhyming poetry piece. But so we're going to start with the first three. There was an old lady who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. In thinking about your piece or what you've written so far, if you were going to formulate it into a poem, where would you want to start? Person, place, or circumstance. So in the three examples that I gave earlier, if we're talking about gang violence, maybe I'm taking a snapshot of the impacts of it in a classroom. And there's one empty desk in the classroom. And I'm going to focus on that. With education, it's obviously I'm going to focus on people and family. I would like to focus on, my grandmother or grandfather or parent. But where's the focus in this piece? Because what we're going to do next is give that focus action. So what I've been cultivating so far is family and how loss has impacted my family recently. And that moment where I get news that is not what I want to hear. There's an obvious before and after boom. I also take the time right now, if anyone wants to share what they have written about so far, perhaps if you just want to tell us your topic or if you want to share your moment or anything like that, I think that's okay, right, Jenna?
Yes, and I just put it in the chat as well. If you want to share, just know that your voice will be recorded, but your name and face will not be shared.
So if anyone would like to share, please go for it.
Well, in the prompt, we've been directed to kind of think about person, place, or circumstance. the place that keeps coming to me is a backyard, and any backyard, because I tend to find peace in backyards. And I'm really drawn to how important the rebirth of love is. So where that place was born for me was very often in a backyard.
It's really beautiful, actually.
I'll share as well. So the place that I landed on is the airport. And this has gone so many different ways. I mean, this has taken my mind in so many places, but the first word that I landed on as far as what matters to me was access. And the place it took me to was me spending my summers every year growing up, traveling from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Washington, D.C., where my dad lived. And just that feeling of being able to move, to leave and like change my environment and like go to someplace new, experience something different. And so that took me so many different places, and just how many ways that connects to my life today. But yeah, the airport is my place.
I would have never honestly thought of an airport, but yeah, that is the genesis of so many adventures. And it makes perfect sense. Okay, so we will move forward to the next step, which is to craft a narrative around this, all of this that we've been working with. And I'm not going to prescribe which part. You can do the setting, you can do the thing that lights you on fire, but I'm going to move forward with talking about the person, place, or setting. And we're going to develop a narrative around it. I think that poetry is a form of narrative writing. It is a form of creative writing. Some might disagree, but they're little stories. They're all telling stories too, whether or not they have a story or character arc, or if they have a first act and third act, but they're still stories. And we are going to be telling a story about this. So the first thing that I would recommend, again, all of these are recommendations because you can do what you want. But the first thing I would recommend is to give that thing action. So in my example of, I would like to portray the shockingness of bad news. So I'm going to create calm on the front and then a different emotion on the back, but I'm going to set the scene for the calm. If you're talking about you love, and I'm going to pick on Jana, if you love access, then, and you're in the airport, maybe you want to set the stage of what the airport feels like to you. And so you're jotting down about hustle or bustle, or maybe you don't recognize that. Maybe you think of, having lost your headphones and now you're in the store, like whatever the entry point to that story is, jot that down. And I would offer, try and do it in one line, maybe 5 or fewer words, so that we can build from there. It's like we are dropping in on your story. You're helping us. We're entering into your world where you're telling us about this thing that matters to you, but you're describing it in a way that is authentic to you. So everybody gathers around the campfire and you say what? After you have that line written down, the next line, I would like it to be about a sense. So one of your senses, I see, I feel, I touch, I smell. but what it is that you see. I kind of want to like mishmash it a little bit. So instead of I see people, try and write that you see a scent or that you smell a person or that you hear something that's not audible. And now we've given the place or the person or the scene action. And now we're going to give ourselves action if we're in it. It's our perspective. So either we are going to actively do something, engage with the environment. I stand, I look, I put the phone down. I walk across the hall. And now we can re-engage with the feeling that we felt. I am filled with what? Or this is filled with what? You can even add adjectives that kind of drive your point home. Because the next line will be about the word is escaping me. An analogy, sorry, or a simile. You know, the gravity of the situation pulled me down like a ton of bricks, or the joy of the moment, you know, lifted me like a ton of balloons. I'm just going off the top here, obviously. But what do you feel in that moment? Add that as your next line. And our last line will be kind of a summation. So we've said all of this information, and the last line is, and all that matters is what? You can wrap it into one word. Sometimes that feels more succinct, but if you want to use more than one word, that's an option. And all that matters is breath. And all that matters is this moment. Okay. That is the end of the exercise. Hopefully you at least have something that you feel inspired to continue. I would like to open it up perhaps for anyone to share what they've written. I can go first if there are no volunteers for anyone who wants to go first. But as I mentioned, I was writing about receiving bad news of passed away loved ones, which unfortunately I've experienced more than I'd like. And it's simple. It just goes 6 a.m. back-to-back calls on a groggy morning turn my peace to anxiety. I feel my heart trying to escape like the tears will later. I breathe. All that matters is that I breathe. And so it's just a moment, it's just a snippet in time where that's what happened. That's what happened, but I'm telling it in a way that honors the way I felt in that moment. And that's when we talk about authenticity. That's when we talk about our voice and where it comes from. So is there anyone else who would care to share?
Well, a poem came out of me, but I didn't follow instructions.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Love to hear it.
So I was trying to follow instructions and the poem came. So
poetry knows. It'll do its own thing.
All right. I guess I apologize. I don't apologize. All right. My people are of the dust. We are the people that weren't. I'm sorry. My people are of the dust. Scattered seeds in arid lands, watered were not we. My peoples are of the dust, scattered seeds in arid lands. I hear their voices. Yes, I hear their voices. Cannot you? From the born to the dead to the unborn, from the dead to the born to the unborn, cut down the tree and the roots still remain. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. I hear their voices. Yes, I hear their voices. Cannot you? My people are of the dust, scattered seeds in arid lands, watered were not we. From the dead to the born to the unborn, from the born to the dead to the unborn, the holy circle never be broken, never be broken, never be broken.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I love the repetition in that, drilling the point home. Can you not hear us?
I think like in the prompt, I was like, they don't see us in Pleasantville. And like, I was at UCLA yesterday and it's all beautiful. And I see nothing but like Asians and whites. And I see one Black male. And then we passed like this Arthur Ashe building and we passed something to Jackie Robinson. But I'm like, so there's nothing, I didn't see anything uplifting Black women. I didn't see anything like uplifting Ida B. Wells or Harriet Tubman or just like, and where are the groups of beautiful Black people sitting and Indigenous people sitting? And then like a slap in the face, I'm leaving and there was like this little plaque, like, we're on the Tongva land. And my daughter was like, oh, that's great. I'm like, no, we're past a plaque. We like, what resources are they giving the Tongva people? Where's the groups of Tongva people enjoying this resources? So I'm just like, we're like all here looking for liberation and we haven't been watered. So I'm still working with it, but I'm like I feel like we're still thriving, even though they try to like cut us down. Like our roots are still here, but we also need we need more.
And those moments are the exact moments where writing is best. When you feel lit up about something, when you feel that, oh, this really just has hit me in a way that I need to do something, one of your options is writing. Like the best poems come out of those moments. If you can channel it into your words and get out of the way of the words, because the words know what they want to, how they want to be written. It's us who we second guess and we scratch out and we, do all of this. So if you can just allow your inner voice to write in those moments, some of the most passionate and well-expressed poems, you can workshop later, you can edit later, will come out of those moments. So I love that. And I love that it was inspired by a very passionate moment in time.
Okay. Is it okay to share this moment, Jazmine? Yeah. Jazmine, thank you, by the way, for guiding us. And thanks, Jana, Milan, for sharing. Victoria, thank you for naming Tongva people on unceded Piscataway territory in Waldorf, Maryland. Okay, let's see. Oh, I wrote, okay, I had to type. I know you said get a pen and paper, but I had to type.
Your process is your process.
Thank you. Okay, so I tried to follow your directions. So my body, your body is the place. It's our real starting. The lesson is that it's a reference point for our freedom. Why didn't the people who brought me here tell me already? When you seek relief from a world that's suffocating, it's like breathing air after a rainstorm, the most refreshing gulp of water. And all that matters is a new way. That's it.
Sorry, I muted myself, but that's fantastic.
Okay.
And I think that, yeah, the prompt is, you know, that's what it's meant to do, is inspire you to use your own voice and to create your own. There might be pieces of this you chopped because you only love one line of it. And that's the process of poetry. That's the process of anything. You do it one way, maybe it changes, it ebbs, it flows. But yeah, that, especially the why didn't the people who brought me here tell me, you know, like that, just little powerful lines like that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah.
I do think we're at time. So I wanted to maybe kick things back over to Jana. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you all so much. Thank you so much for, you know, engaging with me in this space, for allowing me to be here to witness your work. I mean, if you all want to share, continue to share your work, I'm sure that, you know, Jana might be able to speak to ways to continuously engage. But also, thank you. And I hope that we all keep writing. I hope that we all keep identifying as writers, because it's important that identity be a voice where there isn't one. You have a unique story to tell, no matter how you tell it, just that it gets told. And everyone, the universe, our ancestors, God, we're entrusted with stories to tell. And I really do hope that you continue to honor that in yourself. And I look forward to seeing any work that any of us may produce in the future. So back over to you, Jana.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jazmine. My creativity is still flowing right now, and I'm just excited to keep writing. And like you said, really channel those moments when I feel most like emotionally charged. So thank you for that. And I, again, want to just connect us to this week. I mean, this was right on time with allowing us to tap into our own creative juices. We have a rest day tomorrow with no events for Black Liberation Week, but we'll be back on Thursday with comedic yoga with Lauren. So please join us for that and come to our outdoor celebration on Saturday if you're in the LA area. Also, I want to say follow Jazmine. Jazmanian Rebel is her name on Instagram, but she has a whole blog of a lot of her work. So you can stay connected with her there and keep sharing, keep connecting, keep finding your own sense of liberation And we look forward to seeing you all virtually and hopefully in person as well very soon. And last thing I'll say is we are running our campaign right now to reopen our studio doors in Los Angeles. So please support that. It's on our website, on our Instagram, all the links are there. But we are doing a crowdfunding campaign to be back in person this year. So we're excited about that. Keep staying connected with the tree. Peace, fam.